I'm going to say 50-50. You might know it. That what the original name for Gardner Minshew was supposed to be?
When he was born?
What his grandfather wanted his dad to name him.
No, I don't.
The grandfather wanted Gardner Minshew to be named Beowulf. Like from the stories.
Oh, maybe I did hear. That's amazing.
Yeah. He wanted him to be named Beowulf. Well, he's not even the second. It's just he wanted the name. Like it's just that family is. Awesome. I want to hang out with that family.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
Screw the Palmers. I want to hang out with the Minshews.
Welcome into Scoop City on a Thursday. I'm James Palmer. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Please do it because we have a lot of content you don't want to miss. And a lot of it is in today's show because there's a ton of implications going on in Week 16. And remember, there's a lot of teams that can clinch playoff spots in this week, and some of those games are played on Saturday. The Broncos can clinch the AFC West and the number 1 seed in a scenario this week. As well in the AFC is the Bills, Patriots, Jaguars, and Chargers can all clinch a playoff spot this week. As well in the NFC, Eagles, Bears, Packers, 49ers, and Seahawks can all clinch a playoff spot as well. So a lot on the line, and we will take our Thursday road trip across the NFL. We're going to discuss whether the Ravens can keep things rolling after shutting out Cincinnati, and we'll figure out if Lamar Jackson is back to his regular self. We'll also talk about the Lions and can they slow down these resurging Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot on the line in that game, as well as the San Francisco 49ers. Can they keep this going with this injury-riddled team, and can Brock Purdy carry them there? We're going to start our Thursday road trip by heading to Detroit with a massive showdown between the Lions and the Steelers. And we start right there with Colton Pouncy, covers the Lions for us here at The Athletic, does a brilliant job. Read everything he does on The Athletic, guys. Just read all of it. I do. Colton, I love where you're at. I think you're going to sound tremendous when you answer this first question.
I think so too, yeah.
Right now, a 27% chance, due to our simulator, for these Lions to make the postseason. We know that they have the Steelers, Vikings, Bears. That gives them a 53% chance if they win out. But if they win out, they have a pretty good shot. I think what they have ahead of them and the teams that they face are very interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating when you kind of break it down, and it's right in front of you because up next, obviously, we got the Steelers, but who plays quarterback for the Steelers? Aaron Rodgers, a man that has dominated the NFC North for years. The Lions know him very well. If you lose that one, season's kind of on the brinks there. He has a chance to do that. If you win that one, you get by it. You go to Minnesota on Christmas, and who do you face? J.J. McCarthy, a guy that's been up and down this year, to say the least, and a guy that already beat you earlier in the season. So if you lose to J.J. McCarthy twice in 1 year, that's going to be a very very unhappy Christmas for a lot of people. And then you end Week 18. Let's say Lions win those 2 games, give themselves a chance to make the playoffs in Week 18. That is probably maybe a win-and-in game against the Bears in Chicago. Who are you facing? Former friend Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator here for so long, did such a great job, but now would have a chance to end their season and keep them out of the postseason. So it's really poetic when you kind of break it down. You got Aaron Rodgers, you got J.J. McCarthy in the Vikings, and then you got Ben Johnson in Chicago.
Hey, it helps you covering the team, writing about this team every day. I mean, these storylines are just outstanding. It really is something. There's a wild scenario that if they lose this game to Pittsburgh and there is a tie between Green Bay and Chicago, they're eliminated after this week. I don't think that's probably going to happen. I'm just saying that's how close all of this is down the stretch. With everybody. I'm fascinated with this offense. It was good, and now we've seen Dan Campbell take it over, and 31.5 points a game since Week 10, 6.8 yards per play. I mean, you went from good to really explosive. What have you seen that he's done specifically different? I look at, maybe JMO's usage or just what he's done as an offense that you've seen change as he's taken over the play calling.
Yeah, some of it's out of necessity. You mentioned JMO. JMO was not getting the ball very much early in the season. I think he had 5 of his first 7 games. He had 2 or fewer targets, which is pretty insane for a wide receiver you paid this offseason, gave a lot of money to be a core piece for you, a core piece of this offense. And we know that his game has some boomer bust to him because he's a deep ball specialist, but we saw his progression in training camp, the routes that he was running, the intermediate stuff. It felt like that was a part of his game that you could take advantage of. And I think sort of out of necessity when Sam Laporta went down, he was kind of the security blanket for Jared Goff in a lot of ways. Look to him on third down, get the short, tough yards for you. When he kind of left, the Lions shifted from a heavy 12 personnel usage with 2 tight ends to more 11 personnel and just focusing on those wide receivers that they have. And Dan's been really he's placed an emphasis on getting the ball to JMO when he took over play calling. So JMO's top 10 in yards right now, which is shocking. If you would have asked me that 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago, I would have been calling you crazy because they really weren't getting him the ball. But he's been one of the most explosive receivers in the NFL since Dan took over. I think that's where you're seeing the passing game sort of take off. The run game has sort of been inconsistent since Dan took over. I wouldn't put that on him, so to speak. I think a lot of it is just the offensive line, some injuries. It's not as strong as it was last year. That was such a strong unit where they were kind of matchup proof a year ago. It didn't matter who they lined up against. They were going to run the ball. They want to run the ball this year, but it hasn't been the same, haven't had the same success week in and week out. So the passing game has been pretty consistent. Jared's been great. Amon-Ra St. Brown's been consistent when he's been out there and has toughed out an ankle injury. But JMO taking off the way he has without Sam Laporta and just making that concerted effort to get him the ball, I think that's kind of where you've seen Dan's impact the most.
Yeah, I agree. And JMO being on my fantasy team, I appreciate what he's done of late.
Same here. Same here.
Same here. Yes, yeah. Let's go. But then the other part of it is we're seeing, and rightfully so, Jahmyr Gibbs have the biggest workload of his career. And adversely to that, you see David Montgomery's kind of carries kind of have gone down. I'm fascinated to understand why, with the defense that Detroit has, and probably the emphasis to try to keep them off the field and have long sustaining drives, and Montgomery being a part of that, which could help you as an overall team. And then also like putting them both on the field at the same time. Is there different things we can look for or put our finger on why David Montgomery is being used the way he is? And do we think that's going to change during these final 3 games?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I thought it was going to change when Dan took over play calling. I wasn't sure if it was John Morton favors Jahmyr Gibbs. He obviously loves him. He's talked him up all offseason, but
and rightfully so. I mean,
rightfully so. He's a great player. He's one of the most explosive players in the league.
Yeah.
But when you have a 2-back system here that Dan kind of brought with him from New Orleans for a reason, when he had Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, like he wanted to bring that to Detroit. And at first, it started off with DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams, but they thought that they could upgrade that in 2023, which is why they brought in David Montgomery from the Bears. This is why they went and drafted Jahmyr Gibbs 12th overall. But now it sort of seems like they think Gibbs is the indispensable piece of this offense, and Montgomery, it's like, we'll work you in when we can. But I agree with you. Like there are certain games that allow for David Montgomery to have more of an impact than he's had. Like I look at what they did against the Ravens in Week 3. They said, we're going to run the ball. This is going to be a demo game. We're going to keep Lamar Jackson off the field, this explosive Ravens offense off the field, and kind of rely on our run game to give our defense a breather. Mm-hmm. And I think when you look at the defense and where they are now, their secondary is so hurt. They're missing 3 starters. They lead the league in explosive pass plays allowed. So they're playing a lot of snaps too. Like I almost think they should lean on Demo more and give him the ball more in those situations just to give that defense a breather and keep these explosive offenses that they've been facing off the field.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, they haven't done it. And Dan is the play caller, and he's told us for weeks now. It seems like every other week he's getting asked this question: why isn't Demo getting the ball more? Why isn't Monty getting the ball? He's like, he's been a true pro through all this. Like, we want to give him the ball. It's like, you are the play caller. You can do that. That's on you now.
Yeah, he keeps saying, he's handling it well. I'm like, that's cool. But you call the plays.
Yeah, I mean, this is on you. You're wearing the headset. So I do kind of wonder about his future in Detroit. I mean, they extended him a year ago. I think most of his guaranteed money was baked into this year. So if they want to move on and get rid of him after this year, they can. Maybe he's going to want out. I don't think he's been entirely thrilled with the situation, how it's unfolded. But for a coaching staff that preaches the importance of this 2-back system, they've really been favoring one, and that has not been David Montgomery.
Yeah, and you know what? And you're averaging, I think, the highest yards per carry you've had of your career, I believe, right now.
Yeah,
you're going, hey, man, I'll take the rock. Which nickname do you like better? Demo, Monty?
Demo, Monty, they're all interchangeable. Knuckles, he goes by.
Yeah, Knuckles, you got the other big one of the duo.
So many. Yeah, I like Demo, though. I think I've been leaning towards that one.
I like Demo, too. It's very still close to Friday. So with the defense, and you brought them up and how banged up they've been in the secondary and the the struggles they've had in terms of giving up explosive plays. Good news, it's difficult for this Steelers team to go downfield. It's just been, as a whole this season, it's been the short passing game, and hopefully DK can do something with the ball in his hands after the catch. But with that said, you still have 2 more games after this, and you still have to stop it if Aaron does want to go downfield. Do you see them changing anything? Can you do that this late? I mean, I know they're a heavy man team, Colton, right? But can they do anything to kind of mask some of this? Another aspect up front? Like, is there anything you see changing what they do defensively to try to fix this, even though you can't change injuries?
Yeah, it's tough. And like they've kind of been in this situation 2 years in a row where you look up and it's December and your secondary is on IR, and for a defense that is so specific in how they want to play, which is a heavy man coverage, we want cornerbacks that can challenge and press and force quarterbacks to force these tight window throws. When you don't have the horses to run that defense, and your safeties where you have these kind of design roles where Kirby Joseph is the center fielder and he's looking for the ball downfield. You have Brian Branch playing in the box more. Yep. Like they complement each other so well. When you don't have those two pieces, and even Terrion Arnold at corner, who is a heavy man corner, it makes it challenging to run the defense you want to run. So, defensive coordinator Kelvin Shepard told us today that changes are coming, and he let his guys know that. And a lot of his players came up to him during that Rams game and said, I'm sorry that I'm not playing as well as I can. I know this isn't like up to my standards. Like I can be better. So it seems like that accountability is there, but I'm also just not sure how much you can change on the fly with 3 games left in the season. You're talking about an offseason shift if you want to go that route and play more zone and maybe change the structure. There are probably some little tweaks that you can make here and there based on your personnel, but I don't imagine it's going to be a whole lot different. And you probably shouldn't get too far away from what you've done all year when you only have 3 games left. So I'm not sure exactly what it's going to look like, but he told us changes are coming. So I'm excited to see what happens on Sunday.
We'll see what the changes are. Very quickly before I get to my last question, I was reading your mailbag. And for everybody that's listening or watching, could you please just tell them a couple of the numbers in terms of injuries? The Lions compared to the rest of the league, because to me, it's unbelievable.
It really is. For those that don't know, there's a stat in True Media that tracks the number of games missed with an IR designation. And so I looked at that number, and right now the Lions are second in the NFL, which was surprising. I think they were leading for most of the season, but they actually fell to second.
All right.
The Arizona Cardinals are first at 225. Lions are second at 224 games missed with an IR designation. Now, if you go back to the 2021 season, which is Dan Campbell's first here in Detroit, no team has had more games missed with an IR designation than the Detroit Lions. That's 1,095 games. Now, the gap between the Lions at number 1 and the Giants at number 2 is about 94 games. Mm-hmm. That's wider than the gap between the Giants at number 2 and the Cowboys at number 10, which is 83 games. So this has been by far the most injured team in the league since Dan Campbell took over. And that's really been a hot button topic out here in Detroit. Like, do they need to change things? Like, what's the reason behind all these injuries? And Dan Campbell's a guy that believes you need to hit and tackle in practice to be prepared for a season. A lot of other coaches feel differently. And you look at a team like the Rams, they're kind of the opposite. I believe they're last in terms of games missed with an IR designation this year. So it's kind of interesting when you look at it. And I think it's probably a fair question. Like, do you have to look at some things? Do you have to look internally, do things differently, look at the training staff? Because this has been an ongoing theme for really the last 5 years, and it has not gotten better. Fascinating. I know one team that made a big emphasis on it, and I remember the Denver Broncos actually ownership in terms of Greg Penner and Kerry Walton Penner actually touring, to my understanding, other facilities, other training facilities, asking other teams in an offseason about how they go about it, because Denver was having a bit of an issue when they took over the team as an ownership, and they made a big onus to try to go out there and try to fix some of those. So there's a lot of different things teams try to do to see if they can fix this, and maybe that's something Detroit's looking at. By the way, I bet you Jonathan Gannon wants Michael Bidwell to know about those IR situations right now as we close out the season in Arizona. All right, the last one I have for you is biggest concern for you when you go into this game against Pittsburgh, and from the Lions' perspective, should be what? I think they should want to generate pressure against Aaron Rodgers. The problem is he gets the ball out so quickly, as we know, and when they face quarterbacks and get the ball out quickly, they haven't been able to get home. And if you can't create pressure against a quarterback like this, they might be able to move the ball, have some success. We know that the secondary is already struggling, so it really needs to be on the front 7. They got bullied up front against the Rams, and that group has been healthy for the most part. You can give the secondary a pass just because they're down so many guys. The front 7, those linebackers, the defensive line, they've been relatively healthy all year, and they really got bullied up front against the Rams. So you can't have a repeat of that. I think you got to get some pressure on Rodgers, at least try to defend the run better than you did in that last game. And if you can do that, I think you got a decent chance to win. And I think the offense will get it going again against a decent Steelers defense, but I think being at home and having the weapons that they do, there's a talent mismatch there. So it really comes down to the front seven for me.
Great. And if you don't turn the ball over against the Steelers defense, it's usually a different situation as well. So
exactly.
Yeah, totally. All right, finish. Sorry to interrupt you. Finish cutting this latest track, and we'll talk to you later, Colton. Appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks.
Moving on our Thursday road trip around the NFL, Jeff Zrebiec joins us, covers the Ravens brilliantly for us. Jeff, there's a 34% chance, due to our simulator at The Athletic, that the Ravens are going to make the postseason. We know if they win out, they got it, right? But there's a series of things that can happen, even starting before things kick off, between them and the Patriots, that you're going to have your eye on, and that I think this stadium will all have their eye on as well.
Yeah, I mean, Roquan Smith usually delivers the final message to his teammates 30 minutes before kickoff. That's when the final huddle and they go into the locker room one final time before introductions and all that. And right around then is going to be when Steelers-Lions end, because they start at 4:20 kickoff. And that game is fascinating because if the Steelers beat the Lions, it almost, there's no guarantees, but it looks like the Ravens will have to win out to make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. If the Steelers lose that game to the Lions, the Ravens know if they go out and beat the Patriots that they will, at the very least, have a shot at a winner-take-all in Week 18 at Acrisure Stadium, in Pittsburgh. And, this Ravens team had high expectations. Most people thought they could contend for a Super Bowl. So having to make the playoffs by beating a divisional rival on their home field in Week 18 wouldn't have been maybe what they'd sign up for at the beginning of the season, but after starting 1-5 with the quarterback injured for a while, not practicing barely much over the last 6 weeks, and dropping 2 straight divisional games at home, I think they'd take that, an opportunity to win one game, to win the AFC North and get themselves in the playoffs. So it'll be an interesting kickoff time right around there, depending on what the Steelers result, suggests.
Yeah, real quick before I move on. I've been there you're there for every game, but I've been there for a number of games, playoff games. It's one of the most rowdy pre-games that we have in the NFL. I'm curious what your take would be on what that would be like if right as that's happening or right before the pregame starts, right when maybe player introductions, they know that the Steelers had lost. And then the other part real quick, would they play anybody against Seattle? Or do you think, against the Packers, do you think they would?
Yeah, it'll be charged up. There's no doubt. And James, it's not supposed to be one of these 10, 15-degree days here on Sunday either. It's supposed to be, maybe in the 40s or 50s, which means good tailgating weather and people getting there early, maybe people enjoying themselves a little earlier. And I think people want to believe in this team. This has not been a popular Ravens team. We've seen a lot of empty seats in recent home dates. They have not played well at home. This Ravens team has lost 5 games at home this year. That's unheard of for the Ravens. But they want something to believe in, and to get the momentum going. I think finally people felt against Cincinnati. They played a Ravens-style football game, and it kind of drew the fans back in again, where they're starting to believe again. And if that Steelers result goes the way they want, it will be an interesting atmosphere there. But yeah, I know that's going to be an interesting call because you got 2 things factor. One, technically, it does matter if you think a tie comes into play in Week 18. Now, I can't imagine a head coach is going to decide what they're going to do based on a potential tie with how unique that is. Yeah. But technically, it's not necessarily 100% meaningless. And 2, the Ravens are finally starting to get in a little bit of a groove. Do you pull the plug and rest? It's going to be an interesting call. But then again, you're talking about playing a physical Green Bay team probably in really cold weather 2 days after Christmas. Your quarterback's been hurt and sick. You'd have to think about it. That's going to be a conversation they'll have to have.
Yeah, we'll have to discuss that next week if everything falls this way. And those are the questions you're going to be asking everybody in the locker room and to John Harbaugh. everything starts with Lamar. You mentioned the injuries. He's sick. You're dealing with a sick household as well. What I'm fascinated with is this is a career low in terms of rushing yards per game for him, right? Right about 30. He's I don't think ever averaged fewer than 50. I don't think he's rushed for more than 50 yards since week 1. Are we just supposed to assume, Jeff, that this aspect of his game we're not really going to see the rest of the way out? Or have you seen instances where you go, we can see the old Lamar and we may see that moving forward?
Yeah, I think we're starting to see flashes of it, James. I think, one of his carries, he only had 2 runs against Cincinnati, but one of them, he was close to hit 20 miles an hour again, which has been a big deal for him. His metrics have been way down in terms of speed. He's not used that excuse. He's not healthy. He's had the hamstring. He's had a bunch of other stuff. I think everybody knows that. He hasn't been, they've not called as many plays that would emphasize him running. But I think in the last couple of weeks, he's looked a little more elusive. He's looked a little quicker. Not top speed Lamar, but closer to what he's been. So, it would not surprise me if we see him more aggressive with his legs going forward as long as he continues to feel good.
Okay. And then the throwing the ball, the aspect. Obviously, he has such an advantage for what defenses show him when he is a threat to run. And it's always benefited him as a passer as well. But the turnovers in the last 5 games and things like that are just some things you usually are not used to seeing Lamar. When I saw the stat, Jeff, I was kind of blown away. He got 5 picks in 5 games. I think he had 5 in the previous 23.
Yeah.
So it's what is happening in that aspect? Because I think this is also the type of game you can turn it around when that's just something New England doesn't do is of late to pick the football off.
Yeah, I think they can deny, Lamar can deny it all they want, and the coaches aren't going to say it, but he's just not practicing a lot. And you can see there's been times, I do a podcast or a YouTube show, and we had Eric Weddle on recently, and Eric studies quarterbacks now. His son is a top quarterback prospect, and Eric's their head coach, and he said you could tell in his mechanics, like he's just not, mechanically, he's not where he usually is, and Eric's, consults with guys like Roethlisberger and Rivers. I think he wasn't a quarterback, but he knows that position, and I think he's just not practicing a whole lot, and I think we've seen that early in games, when you have the scripted part of the drives where you go in. The Ravens have been such slow starters, and I would have to think that has something to do with him not practicing a lot, them not all being on the same page and getting a lot of time together to really hammer home that early part of the game, the script and all that. And then he kind of warms to the task. So, I think that's a little thing. And I don't think he can, look, when you start not feeling like yourself, other stuff kind of breaks down. You don't have the confidence you usually do. When your mechanics aren't as good as they usually are, maybe your accuracy suffers a little. And I think that's all stuff he's had to deal with this year.
Yeah, that's what Eric Weddle. What a pull! I cored Eric Weddle when he was in college.
Oh, he's great, man.
He's the best. I'm not going to promote a competing show, Jeff. But,
no, I got you.
No, he's the best. I love that you got a chance to chat with him. I'm going to check that out, honestly. With this offense, the last one on that side of the ball is the part that's fascinated me the most, and probably fans that are just even casual fans watching and going, this team has Derrick Henry, this team has Lamar Jackson, yet this is the 31st ranked red zone offense in football. I make that make sense. Yeah. And again, like the interception aspect, this is something that the Patriots have been terrible at. I mean, this is the 4th worst red zone defense we've seen in 10 years. So maybe this is a get-right situation, but if you were to tell everybody, what is wrong with Baltimore down there in the red zone?
Yeah, I think I was talking to someone earlier this week, and I said this is kind of the something has to give game. Exactly. One of these units has to get right. James, I think a big part of it is Ravens have always been able to kind of run the ball when they've needed to down there. And that they've just not run the ball well at all in the red zone this year. And their guard play has been really suspect. They give up way too much penetration. I think it's obvious how he's playing. The Lamar Jackson run game, which is so deadly inside the 20s, it's deadly everywhere. But when he can take off and keep the ball and go around in the red zone. It's just one more thing that you have to deal with. And they haven't had that. He hasn't been doing that. He hasn't been running much. And then the offensive line in the interior has been struggling, giving up way too much penetration. So I think that's the biggest thing. They've had a lot of drops. Zay Flowers has struggled at times holding the ball. Isaiah Likely really hasn't been healthy all year because of the fractured foot. But the big thing is, I think if you want to be a dominant red zone offense, you got to be able to run the football. And they've been able to run the football fine. Their stats are very good, but in between the 20s or inside the 20, they have not been a good running football team at all. You'd think you'd be able to just hand the ball to Derrick Henry and you're guaranteed 6, but that just hasn't been the case for them this year.
Yeah, nuts. Oh, by the way, Derrick Henry, I think first game ever against his former head coach, right?
Yeah.
Mike Vrabel. So that'll be a fun aspect of this to watch. We know Vrabel's a defensive guy, Jeff. This defense here in Baltimore has a shutout against Joe Burrow, which I believe has never happened.
Yeah.
What have you seen from that group that maybe they can kind of, when we see times where they have to kick instead of getting to the end zone as an offense, that the defense can kind of hold their end of things? And Drake May gets sacked quite a bit, in all honesty. What do you see about the approach that they have for New England as a defense coming off such a really, really good performance?
The big thing, James, for the Ravens, you could have as good of a secondary as you want, but if you can't disrupt the quarterback, if you can't pressure the quarterback, you don't really stand a chance. And for the first time against the Bengals, they won a lot of their matchups. Draymond Jones has been a very good trade acquisition, and they got Tavius Robinson back. He had a fractured foot. And that gave him the flexibility. He lined up inside where he got some good matchups. He was the one who pressured Burrow on the interception that Van Noy handed off. And he also got a sack early in the game and forced the Bengals out of field goal range. So now they got more pieces they can use. That's the biggest thing. But a lot of the other stuff where we've seen improvements on, it's Kyle Hamilton being closer to the line of scrimmage. That has really helped. It's Roquan Smith being healthier. And I just think these guys just got embarrassed, they're more just doing their jobs, and they've, it's nothing complicated they're doing. They just started winning some matchups. They were just getting whooped up front at different points. I mean, you and I talked after the Chiefs game, and it's just like, what are we watching? This isn't a Ravens defense. And, I just think they've been much better against the run. They've been one of the best teams against the run in football since about week 6. So they've made some moderate improvements, but I think they're getting guys back healthy. Hamilton closer to the line of scrimmage is a big deal. And I think the 2 trade acquisitions, Draymond Jones and Alohi Gilman, have really settled that group down and given them a little more flexibility and versatility where they don't have to rush younger guys into roles they probably weren't ready for.
And also, I guess, Jeff, you have a practice week like last week. I love that everybody go check out what Jeff wrote about that Friday, right? Real physical, physical practice last Friday. And if you have Ed Reed talk to the group, I think usually it does something. Maybe Ed will be back before this Patriots game as well. Before you go, I always have to ask this question to you because it's asked to me nonstop. If things do not go well, and we're talking about all the way they can over these last 3 weeks, has there been any thought in your mind or any buzz around the building with John Harbaugh? And to me, it almost seems a very similar comparison, and I know everybody makes it, to Mike Tomlin. Would they ever fire John? Or would it be to something of like, we part ways if it ever got to that? And I know you've laid it out to me brilliantly before about what, Steve Bisciotti, and it's really his say. And he doesn't relieve much, Jeff. But, what are you leaning on now if things don't go well?
Yeah, around the building, no. You bring it up and everyone's like, oh, come on. That's not happening. But at some point, it is going to happen. He's not going to be their coach forever. And I always say, Bisciotti keeps such a tight inner circle. He's making the call. He hasn't talked to the media in 4 or 5 years. He hasn't talked to the media since he made that comment about Deshaun Watson not being the guy that deserves the fully guaranteed deal. And I don't think he necessarily appreciated the fallout from that. And that was kind of it for us. So we don't exactly know how he's thinking. I wouldn't say it's likely, James, if they don't make the playoffs, but I'm not ruling it out, and I would have to think there would be extensive changes one way or the other. Now, maybe that only rises to the coordinator level, with Zach Orr or Monken maybe, but I don't think you can rule anything out with this team. When you have Super Bowl expectations and you may not make the playoffs, usually there's extensive changes. But I do agree with what you said earlier. I think this would be something where they sit down with John Harbaugh and figure it out. I would be shocked if it's something where he just gets fired out of nowhere. He's earned that after 18 years. And who knows with John, maybe he's itching for a change at some point. Now, he's always said he really doesn't have much interest in the college game. I know people are throwing the Michigan thing out there, but he's always, he's never expressed any interest in college. But I think he'll have whatever NFL job he wants if he was a free agent. So, but we'll see, man. There's been no indication in the building that they'd make that move. But again, Bisciotti's a wild card. He stays out of it. We don't see him much around. He kind of works behind the scenes, and it's going to ultimately be his call.
That's fascinating. It's funny with John. I always think about the stability he's had in his career and how few of stops he's had. And if he was to become available, how would he get back to that next spot? Because I would assume he'd want that same type of stability. And oftentimes when jobs become open, there's a question about that organization, right? So it's going to be interesting.
And you think about different teams, isn't Stephen Ross a well-known Michigan guy? Mm-hmm. I think John Harbaugh would be a great fit at Miami if they wanted to go in that direction, if they make a move there, which I know is not certain. So I don't think he would have a problem finding a job one bit. In fact, he wouldn't be far removed from the parking lot where his phone would be ringing with at least offers to come in to interview. So, but we'll see. I mean, they value stability here, and they say it over and over again. They believe he's one of the best coaches in the league, and I think if there was a decision, they felt like if they don't get to the playoffs here, I'd imagine they'll talk about it and he'll be involved in the decision.
Man, it's wild. And you can't control what happens outside your building, Jeff, but when you're looking at a playoffs that you may not make, that won't have Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow, you're sitting there going, oh, did we miss an opportunity? Enjoy the one on Sunday. It's going to be probably one of the best atmospheres we have across the league. We'll be talking to you soon, man.
Happy holidays, James. Always enjoy talking to you.
Yeah, get a healthy household before the holidays.
That would help.
Moving on with our Thursday road trip around the NFL, one of my good buddies, Vic Tafer, joins us. Vic, I saw this, and this fascinates me with the 49ers, because right now, you look at their division, and you look at what's ahead of them, you're like, wow, the Rams are great, the Seahawks are great. But if the Seahawks beat the Rams and the Panthers, and the Niners beat the Colts and the Bears, Week 18, the Niners could be playing for the number 1 seed. To me, that sounds wild, but it is possible. With this team, could you describe what Kyle Shanahan has done? Because we don't have time to list the injuries or what they've been through.
Yeah, it's been pretty amazing that they actually are 10-4 at this point with the injuries they've had. Everyone knows about, Fred Warner and Nick Bosa, but, they also lost, Brandon Ayuk, who was supposed to be a part of this at some point. He's now gone. So a lot of key guys we're counting on are not there, and they're kind of managing to win games. I think it's a credit to Kyle Shanahan. Robert Saleh's been a huge addition. I think all the players, even last week, will mention, hey, Mac Jones, he was a big part of this. He got us here because he won a bunch of his starts and he was playing for Brock Purdy. So they just kind of have rallied. And I think to me what stands out is that locker room. People talk about a winning culture, and a lot of it's kind of it's a myth at some places, but here it's actually real. Like there's a bunch of veteran guys who won before. Pretty much every position group has one, and it's just you walk in that place and you're like, okay, we're going to win a game. This is order of business. This week we're playing these guys. This is how we're going to win. Well, let's go do it, and they do it. So it's been impressive to watch.
Yeah, I always look at him and go, like, any year you could probably throw him in the Coach of the Year conversation. I feel like he's not in it because we have Liam Cohen, what he's doing. We have Vrabel, what he's doing. Ben Johnson, what he's doing. Does he have he has an argument, right, to be in that conversation?
Oh, no question. I think definitely it's a very, and it's kind of a wonder he hasn't won to this point in his career. He's had some good years, obviously, but this year, look at what he's lost and what they've accomplished. I mean, that win against the Rams early on was kind of a storybook win when they had nobody, and so he definitely deserves it. I can't imagine anybody beats out Ben Johnson, but hey, he definitely should be in the running.
You're going Ben Johnson over Vrabel.
I just think, the Bears, look what the Bears are doing. The Bears are like, they're running down people's throats. Caleb Williams is getting better. Defense is playing. They're just, look at what the Bears were last year. Obviously, the Patriots are also a great story, but I just think the Bears have turned it around to a point where they might be like a team to really reckon with in the playoffs, which I think is nuts.
It is nuts. I think Vrabel doesn't stand a chance until he takes his shirt off, but we'll get to that when we can. Ben's already done it. What's your take on Rivers and what you've seen here, Vic? I know everybody I've talked to and players I've talked to have been like, oh, when we play him, we're going to rip his head off. We're going to destroy the old man. Well, the guy barely takes a sack against a team that's fourth in the NFL in sacks, but we saw he can't go downfield. I mean, it didn't have. What do you take of Rivers, and what does the locker room kind of think of this player that they're going to be going against?
I think players think it's cool. I mean, obviously he's a very popular guy. He's a hilarious guy who everybody likes in terms of what he's done in his career. But I mean, you watched that game last week, and it's just like it's 5-yard passes. The ball's not moving, and he can't move. So I think last week was probably the best it will be for him as far as his performance. I think from here it has to go downhill. And he says he likes being hit, which I can't believe is true. So I just don't think it's a great move by the Colts. I know everyone loves the story and it's great, and kids are learning how to, be brave and take chances, yada, yada, yada. But I don't think you can bring a guy in who's 44 years old and hasn't played and tell a guy like Ryan Leonard, who, has been there all year long, hey, kid, step aside. This guy's coming in because, he's our guy. I just think they've changed their offense. They're no longer under center. I just think it's, to me, I think it's ridiculous. But, hey, here, that's where we're at. So we'll see what happens. And watch them beat the 49ers, and I'll be eating these words. But
we'll bring this back. Yeah.
I can't imagine Robert Saleh can't cook something up for old man Rivers, but we'll see.
Yeah, because there was the unknown going into week one with him playing, right, Vic? And now there's like, okay, I saw the stats. 2 of 8 for 33 yards and a pick and a 4.7 passer rating on balls thrown over 10 yards. I don't think that's great. So, yeah, Anthony Richardson, by the way, has to be kicking himself going like, what happened to me pregame that I'm not part of this equation, that I've been on IR? It's been unbelievable. Sticking with that position, though, Vic, with the way Brock Purdy's come back and the way he's played the last couple of weeks, we'll get to the defense in a second and what Robert Saleh's been dealing with, Bo. But I think everybody looks at the postseason and goes, all right, is our quarterback good enough to carry us on a postseason run if he has to? Would you say Purdy can do that with guys kind of back healthy around him a little bit weapon-wise?
Yeah, you definitely can see the blueprint. I think you saw it last week. He threw the ball well. He moved really well. I think the toe now is no longer a concern where he's very mobile. He's able to avoid sacks, make plays, off script. I think obviously we mentioned Ayuk is gone, but there's still a core of guys there. Obviously McCaffrey's having a great year. George Kittle is looking great. Juwan Jennings is healthier than he has been all year long. So there's pieces around him where he can make plays, and the hope is that they can outscore teams the defense has not been great. So they have to outscore teams, and you'll watch them, and maybe they can. I think you look at the offensive line's gotten better as the year's gone on, and Brock gives them a lot of confidence. I think Brock is a guy who can definitely will them to win. So I think everyone right now there feels pretty good about the offense.
Yeah. And you mentioned Brandon Ayuk a couple of times. Obviously, he hasn't been here all year. We know what's gone on off the field with the voided money and everything that's happened. I read the quotes, Vic. I see what Kyle says on the podium. But in the locker room, are like when you guys bring up Brandon Ayuk to players, I mean, I know they'll answer the question, but do they want to? Are they tired of hearing about it? Is it a distraction of any sense? And then also, Pearsall, when he's healthy, looks like he could be that guy in 2026. But staying on the field seems to be the issue with Ricky.
Right. He got hurt again last week, so I think that's a huge question mark. You see Ricky's potential, but, I mean, it's just been one thing after the other, so I think it's hard to really say he could be a guy. As far as Ayuk, I think it's just, to me, it's the rapid shift of the vision, because even in training camp, he was running around, like, trying to get back into it, talking. He's a very popular guy in the locker room. People like him, so I think that's part of the issue here, where they thought, just wait till, like, week 6, week 8, he's coming back, oof, watch out, here we go. And it never happened, and all of a sudden, he obviously stopped showing up. So our teammates are more disappointed. They're kind of like they thought he was the guy, one of them, and clearly something happened where he's not. And I just think that, they've done a good job about moving on and next man up and all that stuff. But he was the guy they were counting on. They liked him. They thought he was a big part of this nucleus, and now he's not. So I think at some point, maybe when the season's over, they'll look back and say, wow, what the hell happened? But now they're kind of just trying to move on. And I think disappointment is maybe the key word for me, not so much they can't believe it happened the way it did.
Yeah, because that's what goes through my head. You're 10-4. And you're like, man, if we could have you back as part of this offense, I mean, like, we know we got to score a lot of points. So that would really help us put some points on the board. Before we go, on the defensive side of the ball, you mentioned Robert Saleh. They might be, let me know, getting a little bit healthier. But what's a bigger issue? I think they're like dead last in their success rate against the run and like second to last in pressure rate. Of those two, what's a bigger issue in your mind, Vic?
I think the pressure rate. They have, I think, 11 sacks the last 11 games. They're trying. I mean, they got some guys, signed some guys. Cleveland Farrell came in, gave him a little boost for a while, but I mean, I love Cleve, but he's not going to be your premier pass rusher in the NFL these days. So I think they're trying to blitz. Some of the blitzes haven't gotten home, so it's tough. I mean, you have what you have, and they've missed the guys they've lost. So I think, to me, the lack of pressure is a glaring thing, especially this time of year. You got to make some noise. I just think the one thing you can shore up, I think this week they'll get back. Eric Kendricks is here now. Your two Gross Matos, Tatum Bethune are all back in practice this week, supposedly. So the run defense, I think you can fix. If you have to, you can stuff the box. But you got to get home against the quarterback, and they haven't done that. So that's, to me, the biggest issue going forward.
Awesome. Always good chatting with you, man. I'll tell Silver this weekend you said hello, unless you don't want me to. I can definitely do that as well.
Tell him hi.
Okay. Okay. All right, man. Enjoy this week.
All right, boss. Take care.
All right, we're not done yet on Scoop City on a Thursday. We have Jake Seeley joining us like he does most Thursdays to talk about your fantasy football team. And if you're in the postseason, do not want to miss what he has to maybe help you get over the hump. Coming up next on Scoop City. All right, welcome back to Scoop City on a Thursday, and that means Jake Seeley joins us to talk a little fantasy football. But first, we always talk about some of these lists, but this is a list that's actually related to fantasy football, isn't it, Jake?
Yes, it's a fantasy football and regular football. Like, you don't even need to know.
All coming together.
It is. Just like this T-shirt. All I want for Christmas is you, but it's a cookie instead.
Oh, recently. Well. At first I thought that was about me, but it's about the cookie. Describe this list to me, because I'm just kind of a little fascinated by it. A little, protruding. Give me your favorite.
So it's essentially the best random fantasy performances. Thank you very much, Kyle Pitts, for last week putting this list. This was not on my docket of lists to go through, but the Kyle Pitts game made me think of it is to go back. And I remember one of the first ever for me, because I started around 1999, 2000, was the Billy Volek, Drew Bennett run. That
I'll remember it.
Took people to championships. But unfortunately, the reason they don't rank number one is because if you made it to the championship riding them after Steve McNair got hurt, they kind of left you hanging just a little bit in that championship week with a terrible week 16. But the Billy Volek and Drew Bennett, that second game that they played together, scored over 80 fantasy points combined, just the two of them. But my number one of all time is still Jerome Harrison stepping in the last season of Jamal Lewis with those Browns. And it wasn't just because of the huge game that he had in week 14, but 15 and 16, scored another 18 and 22 points for one of the best 3-game stretches from any replacement anywhere that we saw in fantasy.
Oh, wow. I mean, I had a lot to read with this list. They're very in depth. I just real quick before we move on, how long did this take you? I mean,
off the top of my head, surprisingly not that long. It was more so
off the top of your head, 2004, 2008, 2012.
This is my job, though. This is similar to you, is like, off the top of your head, name blank, 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 and guys you talk to and your best interviews and like what's important for this. Like, it's when you do it all the time. This is my job. It was more so remember the exact weeks and then the exact stats. But so once I kind of had about 20 names I wrote down, I'll admit Jerry Porter was not on my list until I was looking through the stats.
Okay, you're right. These things do come up quick. Favorite interview? This one right here. Let me ask you this. Everybody, I tell no lies. Everybody's curious about, oh no, what's Patrick Mahomes? He's gone. What's going to happen? Does this affect you playoff time if you have some of these targets that he could be throwing to as part of this Chiefs offense?
Yeah, it really does, honestly.
Gardner
but not
Minshew. Or
Beowulf
Minshew.
Beowulf Minshew, yes, very much so. Is that, look, we know Minshew is kind of like Jameis Winston light just because he has more bad games than Jameis does, but he's going to be aggressive. He's going to throw the ball. He doesn't care. He's not playing for a job. He's going to have a backup job again next year. He's not becoming a starter. He's not going to lose his job because he's just going to Gardner Minshew it. Like, they'll just call that Minshewing it. The good news is that we kind of have some clarity. Rashee Rice will be fine if he can get through concussion protocol. protocol. If not, you chase Xavier Worthy. But my biggest thing here is I think we could be looking at a vintage Travis Kelce game because you're going to take those shots. There's not much left on this team to turn to. Kelce, we've already seen the rumors, might be thinking to head out. And then, I think it's not going to be as bad as people. Similar to Quinn Ewers. It's not like Tua was bawling out. Like, it's not going to be the end of the world for those weapons. But I will say this in addition, if you are looking for a quarterback in your playoffs, you're not trying to get QB 18. Like, don't go out there and be like, oh, cool, I got CJ Stroud. Like, I love CJ Stroud, but for fantasy purposes, just chase JJ McCarthy. Just shoot for top 10 because you're trying to replace Patrick Mahomes.
I get what you're saying. I get it. I have CJ Stroud sitting on my bench, but that's because I'm still hoping Lamar Jackson just somehow puts it together at some time.
We're still waiting.
Still waiting for it.
He ran last week. He looked good running.
Yeah, he looked good. We had Jeff Zrebiec on here, and he was talking about it. He was starting to look a little more spry.
He's getting there.
All right. How about, like, this is a game, and I did something on here on The Athletic this week about how nobody might be paying attention to this Panthers-Bucks game. They should. There's a lot of implications over the next 3 weeks for both of these organizations. But specifically, when I look at what Baker Mayfield did at the beginning of the year, Jake, kind of an MVP-type candidate everybody's talking about. This chemistry with Emeka Egbuka is through the roof, and they've had this shuffling of receivers in and out. The offense lately has stalled over the last several games. I think they've lost 6 of their last 8. I know some defenses have played Egbuka a little bit differently. We have Mike Evans back. Chris Godwin starting to look like Chris Godwin, maybe. What does this mean in your eyes for how much trust you could have in Baker Mayfield as a whole and the guy who could potentially be Rookie of the Year in Emeka Egbuka?
Yeah, and I think that what you just said is like my eyes. Is like for everybody that watched that game, like watching that football game, like Baker was looking more like the first half Baker. Mike Evans, surprised, like this dude could just come back from injuries. Like we heard that might be on a pitch count. No, it was Mike Evans. Like he hadn't skipped a beat. And Baker said, you know what? I'm going to Mike Evans every time I can. But the big pull away from that is not just how good they both look because you're just keeping in your lineups or putting Baker back in or putting Mike Evans back in if you were waiting. I think you can also put Egbuka back in. The biggest thing, as you know, watch all these games, you watch all these players as much as I do. If not more. But it's you see what I did there? A little compliment at the end there.
Nice.
I didn't want it to sound so. Yeah.
Nice sweater. Go ahead.
Thanks. When it comes down to Egbuka, is the fall off was because of Mike Evans leaving. Is that Egbuka? I made the comparison when it happened after the first game. It happened. I made the comparison to Anquan Boldin back in the day. Like Anquan Boldin was a top 10 wide receiver when he was out there with Fitz and out there with somebody else. But as soon as he was asked to be the one by himself, he was still good. He just was kind of more of a wide receiver too. He needed somebody on his level with him. And so Godwin coming back didn't really help Egbuka because he's spending most of his time in the slot. He needed somebody else on the outside again, an alpha of Mike Evans to be back. And you saw Egbuka was looking good in that game too. He could have even had a better game. And I think that you can have that faith of putting Egbuka back into your lineup for the playoffs next week with all 3 of them.
Okay, I like it. And you're also apparently roasting the Panthers defense in tune while you're talking about all of this.
Just a little. You don't have to pull that out.
That's fine. We'll see what Bryce Young could do. It's a fun one to watch on Sunday, certainly. Before we go, do you have a list of your best holiday songs?
Oh yeah, 100%. I do it every single year. What is yours? I'm curious because you always come. So we're not going to be doing this next week. So I was curious if you're going to be like. I was like, oh man, he's going to kill my list because he loves killing my movie list. But now you don't get to know in advance unless you checked last year's. And I'm curious if you have one.
I think there's a. I mean, it was playing this morning in our house. Is the Michael Bublé Christmas album playing throughout the whole home? When he does Ave Maria is brilliant. I'm not gonna lie, my wife walked down the aisle to it, so I'll probably have to say that as my number one. But my real number one is the song that plays in Home Alone when he's starting to get ready to take down Marvin Harry.
By the way, as a sidebar, real quick, I don't know if you've seen this whole speculation of how it's a Christian movie, and they go this deep dive of like how the old man, what the heck is his name?
Old Man Marley?
Yeah, Marley. Old Man Marley.
Old Man Marley.
He's representative of Jesus. You got to watch this. It's like the biggest deep dive where I'm just like, wow, because he gets his hand pierced and then it's healed at the end and all. Anyway, no.
Whoa.
Yeah, see? Look.
Whoa, I thought he was
blowing your mind here.
Just arguing with his son. Okay, go ahead.
Nat King Cole, the Christmas song. That's always going to be my 100% number one. I do a lot of fun ones, like Andy Williams is the most wonderful time of the year is number two. I have a lot of fun ones on my list, but number one will always be the Christmas song with Nat King Cole.
That's a great one. It's solid. It's big. It's
solid.
It's iconic. It's iconic.
I like how you're going down with that. It's a great one. It's solid. It's okay.
Well, now that I think about it, I do like Nat King Cole. I'll say this before you go. Also, Sia, her Christmas album is outstanding.
Really?
Really good. Really good. You should check that out. And everybody listening should check that out as well. I get no royalties from that, but everybody please check out the Christmas album. Jake, have a great holiday.
You do.
And good chatting with you. Wonderful sweater.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Coming up on Scoop City as we close things out, I'm going to tell you why the parity this year, it's something you should be excited about. No Chiefs in the postseason. Don't get down. I'm going to tell you about the new teams, the new kids on the block. Coming up on Scoop City. Welcome back to Scoop City on a Thursday. James Palmer here with you, closing things out solo as I give you my extra point. We're so used to season in, season out that it's going to be Patrick Mahomes in the postseason. And then it's going to be the Bills or the Ravens or the Bengals that are trying to dethrone Mahomes and Andy Reid from the AFC. And that's been kind of what we've seen year in and year out. On the NFC side, we've usually been seeing three teams that are somewhat shuffling as maybe the best team in the NFC, whether it's the 49ers or the Rams or the Eagles. I guess you sprinkle the Lions in there a little bit, but not so much. It's really just been those. Now, the NFL prides themselves on parity compared to the other leagues. And they've done a very, very good job of it throughout the course of the last several decades. In the last 35 seasons, well, we've had at least 4 teams make the postseason that didn't make it the season before. But we questioned this parity this past season in 2024. Were we starting to steer more towards what I just described and less parity? Because for the first time since 1976, all 8 division winners were in the playoffs the season before. And we also did not have a team go from worst to first in their division. That's happened in 20 of the previous 23 seasons. But this year is different. This year, the parity seems to have returned. Let's look at the AFC first. I mentioned the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are not going to be in the postseason. We look at the top 3 teams of the AFC. The Broncos have a legitimate chance to get that number 1 seed even this week with a specific scenario and can clinch the AFC West. Behind them, we have the Patriots and the Jaguars. Each of them have a new head coach this year and had 4 wins last season. And if you look at the Chargers who have 10 wins and you look at the Texans who have 9, nobody wants to play them in the postseason. They could both be the lower seed and beat their first opponent in the postseason. When you look at the NFC, as I mentioned, the teams that are usually there, the Rams are at the top of the conference and they may be the best team in football. But right behind them sits a Chicago Bears team that has 10 wins when they only had 5 last year and maybe have the coach of the year in Ben Johnson. So when you look at where everything stands with both of these conferences, and the Seattle Seahawks could be a low seed where they already have 11 wins now, could easily be the favorite in their first postseason game. So it seems like the parity is there, and we could have a number of teams that are the lower seed, but the favorite in the first round of the playoffs. So it seems like that parity might be there, and it might have returned. I don't know if we like it or not, or are some of these teams here to stay? I think that's what we're going to find out in this year's postseason. All right, I want to thank everybody that joined us in this show on a Thursday. Jeff Zrebiec joined us, and we had Colton Pouncy with us, and we had Vic Tafer with us, and we had Jake Seeley with us, and I had myself the entire way. Enjoy your massive week of football. Remember, it's on Thursday night, it's on Saturday, it's on Sunday, and it's on Monday, and we'll be back with you next week. Take it easy.
Thanks for watching Scoop City. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and feel free to leave a comment. New episodes of Scoop City drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday.